Now, that's all for can and could, and let's move on now to the modal verbs may and might, as well as compare them with our previously examined can and could. Might is the past form of may, which you may know. If you use may with reference to the present, it actually represents a more polite form of may and expresses the possibility. Like in the examples, he said it might rain, and he might still come. Here, I'm expressing a possibility, and functionally this works very similarly to could. In fact, I could still say, he said it could rain. Now, may and its past form might have the following possible meanings. One, I can express uncertainty or supposition. Like in the example, I may come home late today, and he may be ill. Here, I've used may with the indefinite infinitive to express an action which may be possible in the present or future. May with the continuous infinitive expresses an action at the present moment. Like in the example, he may be sleeping now. And may with the perfect infinitive expresses an action which happened in the past but still has an effect now. Like in the example, he may have fallen asleep. We also use may and might to discuss hypothetical probabilities. For example, he may come and see us tomorrow. Now, we use might with the perfect infinitive in this case to express an action that wasn't realized. Like in the example, she might have fallen down, but a passerby gave her a hand. Here, I am saying that in the past it was possible, but it didn't happen. Now, we also use may and might to discuss permission. Like in the phrase, may I call you tomorrow? Now, remember though, if you are reporting speech, it's much better to use the expression, it's allowed to, or to be allowed to, instead of might, to avoid ambiguity, because might in reported speech can have a few different meanings. Let's look at a couple examples to see how this really works. I can say, for example, he said he might come to the party, but as a native speaker, I can tell you that I understand this as him saying that it is possible, not that he has permission. However, if he tells me he was allowed to come to the party, in this case, I know that he has permission from his parents, from his wife, from his roommate even. Now, just like can and could, there are also some set expressions with may and might that I would like to turn your attention to. First, may you be happy. Here, I'm just expressing my wish for you to be happy. Also, come what may. Now, here, I'm saying that no matter what happens, we will continue doing something or we will remain in this state. We are ready for whatever happens, come what may. And a third example, it might have been worse. Here, you may have also heard the example, it could have been worse. And here, again, you can switch could with might. And it might have been worse just means that in the past, there was the possibility for it to have been worse. But lucky for us, it wasn't. And let's sum up the usage of can and could versus may and might in Table 1. So, if we're talking about mental and physical ability, we should use can. In the present tense, he can read Spanish, and in the past, he could read Spanish when he was 7. However, in this case, for ability, we should not use may or might. If we're talking about possibility due to circumstances, we can use can and could in all types of sentences. For example, you can find the book in the library. Or, can you find this book for me? As well as, you cannot find this book in the library. However, for may and might, you should note that in the present tense, if you are using may, you should not use a negative sentence. In the affirmative sentence, you can say, you may find this book in the library, but do not say you may not find this book in the library. May not only refers to permission. You could, however, say, you might find this book in the library, or you might not find this book in the library. Only avoid may not. Talking about permission, if you're speaking in an informal style, then can and could are both okay. For example, can I speak to John, please? But if you're speaking in a formal style or in a formal scenario, you need to use may or might. Like, may I speak to Mr. Willis, please? And lastly, if we're referring to time, can and could can be used in almost all tenses, present, past, and future. For example, he could do it by himself in the past. He can do it by himself in the present and the future. However, may and might we only use with the present or the future. Might is used with reference to the past only in reported speech. For example, he may find this book at the library, or he said he might find this book at the library. And if we're using perfect tenses, may, or its past form, might, and could are equivalent. In the perfect tense, might and could are the same. Usually in the phrase, might and could have done. And this indicates that the action wasn't completed or realized in the past. The next pair of modal verbs that we need to talk about today are must and have to. And let's start with must. Must can be used with the following meanings. First, to express obligation from the speaker's point of view or by laws, rules, or regulations. Like in the example, you must work if you want to have means to live. Here, must, followed by the indefinite infinitive, expresses obligation in the present or future. Likewise, we can also use must to discuss official prohibition or a ban. For example, you mustn't smoke in public areas, and you mustn't cross the road on a red light. We can also use must to express supposition with strong possibilities, or to express things that we know to be true. Let's look at some examples using this. First, he must know the answer. Here, must followed by the indefinite infinitive expresses a supposition in the present. But if I say, look, the light is on, he must be home. Here, it's also expressing a supposition at present as well. If I say, she must be sunbathing now, here I've used must with the continuous infinitive. And this is a supposition at the present too, but it's about what she must be doing. It's about her action at this very second. And finally, you must have overslept again. Here, must followed by the perfect infinitive is used to express a supposition about the past. I am drawing conclusions about something that happened in the past. Now, to express supposition in the future, must is not used. Instead, you will use the adverbs probably or obviously. Like in the examples, I'll probably be late tomorrow, or obviously, I'll be late tomorrow. On the other hand, the modal verb have to is used in the present simple, past indefinite, and future indefinite tenses. And the negative and interrogative forms of sentences using these structures will need the help of an auxiliary, do, did, or will. Like in the examples, I have to get up at 6 o'clock in the present tense, so no auxiliary. Why do I have to do it? A question, so we need the auxiliary do. Why do I have to do it? Or we don't have to explain. Here, because I'm speaking negatively, we need the auxiliary don't. Now, have to can be used with the following meanings. First, we use it to express obligation or necessity due to the current circumstances. For example, I have no choice, I have to do it. Or 2, you have to pass the external evaluation test, otherwise universities won't accept you. Here, have got with the infinitive is used in the colloquial meaning. It's the same phrase, but it's very informal, and it's only used in the present indefinite. Now, negative and auxiliary sentences using have got to are formed without auxiliaries, and this is a very important point that I want to emphasize. If you are using have to in a negative statement or a question, you need an auxiliary verb. But if you say have or haven't got, you do not use an extra auxiliary. Now let's look at some examples using have got. First, have you got to do this work yourself? Or, I haven't got to wear a tie to work. Here, in both of these, a question and a negative statement, there is no auxiliary. Now, to compare must to have to, we need to note the difference. Must is based upon my point of view, or the point of view of law. It's what the speaker thinks should be true. However, have to is based on current circumstances. There are circumstances coming from other places, not the speaker, which make this action necessary or unnecessary. Now, that's about all for these two groups of modal verbs. To summarize, we've looked at the differences between can and could, and may and might, as well as the modal verbs must and have to. Now, be sure to review this lesson a few times, and particularly review the differences between can and may, because this is a very important part of the English language. And it's very, very important that you be able to distinguish when to use all of these cases. So review the materials, review the lesson, just like always.